coming up.
I'm very interested in who he met with, so I'm not going to ask Mr. Ossowski, I'm going to ask you who he met with and what he saw, because this is really important. Because what it looks like to me is that we have a former executive who's involved in a massive scandal, a $60 million scandal, with a department that has investigations that include the RCMP kicking people's front doors in.
From December 2nd to December 8th, 2022, Mr. Gaspar took a trip to Bahrain. Are you aware of this trip?
I believe that was in the context of the World Customs Organization.
Are you aware if he did anything else while he was on that trip?
No?
Did he undertake any personal business while on that trip?
I don't know.
Did he attend the World Cup while on that trip?
There was no grind. You talk about you talked about the grind of ArriveCan, but for GC Strategies there was no grind. It was only grift.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
From the Canadian Border Services Agency, Aaron O'Gorman, President. Nice to have you back. And Chaluka Alaperuma, Director from the same agency.
We've reduced our consulting footprint. At the start of the fiscal year, we had 25 fewer consultants than at the same time last year, and today we have 68 fewer consultants working in the CBSA in the IT branches than we did when I was here in February. We're undertaking this reduction carefully and with purpose, making sure that we transfer knowledge and skills to our internal teams as we go. We will also be requiring vendors with active IT service contracts to certify that none of the resources they provide to CBSA is actively employed as public servants who have not disclosed this information. Should it be discovered that this is not the case after they have certified, we will terminate the resource and likely the contract. All CBSA employees will have to validate their conflict of interest declarations and will renew these declarations on a recurring basis. In addition, all employees involved in procurement will be required to certify that they do not have conflicts of interest, real, apparent, or perceived, relating to individual procurements at the outset of each process. On May 6th, the CBSA published a refreshed code of conduct for employees at the CBSA. It's been updated to reflect current scenarios, more inclusive language so that all employees can see themselves in the code. What hasn't changed are the fundamentals of the code: respect, integrity, stewardship, and the pursuit of excellence. What also continues to guide us is the important mandate the CBSA has to serve and protect Canadians, and the professionalism and dedication with which CBSA employees deliver on this mandate every day across the country and around the world.
Did CBSA enter into a paid contract with Mr. Ossowski surrounding his testimony on ArriveCan?
So, in the federal government, when former public servants are called to testify before commissions of inquiry, in litigation, before the PSLRAB, or perhaps at parliamentary committees, it's not uncommon for them to be brought back on a casual contract to facilitate their access to the information and the support they need to prepare themselves to testify on behalf of the Crown. So I brought him in on a casual contract to facilitate his access to the information that he sought to prepare. That's the convention that I was working under when I made that arrangement. If it turns out that that was not required for him to access the information that he needed, I'll take responsibility for that.
So Mr. Ossowski left the public service and now works for a big consulting firm. Is that right?
I don't know that he still works there, but I do know that he was working with a consulting firm.
Does PricewaterhouseCoopers, the firm that he was working at the time that you brought him on contract to get aligned before he testified at committee, were they doing any business with the CBSA, his firm?
They weren't doing any business. I'm not sure I understand the comment about get aligned. He did ask for access to documents that he had when he was in the position of president to prepare for the
We'll circle back to that, ma'am. We'll circle back to that. The question is does PricewaterhouseCoopers have any contracts with the Canada Border Service Agency?
No.
Do they have any contracts with the Government of Canada?
I presume so. I don't know. I know what is happening in the CBSA.
How much was Mr. Ossowski paid?
I believe he billed 1 day for his preparation for testimony, and that was approximately $500.
So he billed, so he set the terms of the contract, the price for it?
No, he was brought in at a certain level. I believe it was an EX1 level, but I'd have to confirm that. And then he signed a letter of offer that included conflict of interest declaration, and that would be the mechanism by which we would facilitate his
What documents
access.
did he have access to?
You'll have to ask him. I believe he's appearing on
Well, I'm asking you,
Thursday.
actually. You're the president of the Canada Border Services Agency. You brought in someone who works for a consulting shop, who does consulting with the Government of Canada, and you wrote them a check, and you wanted to get back to this. I'm very interested in who he met with, so I'm not going to ask Mr. Osowski, I'm going to ask you who he met with and what he saw, because this is really important. Because what it looks like to me is that we have a former executive who's involved in a massive scandal, a $60 million scandal, with a department that has investigations that include the RCMP kicking people's front doors in. So I think it's pretty interesting that he's getting paid by his former employer. It looks to me like he was getting paid to get his story straight. So who did he meet with, and what documents did he see? And I'm asking you, not Mr. Osowski.
Mr. Chair, I don't understand the insinuation about getting stories straight. As I just said, it was to access information that he wanted to review in order to prepare to come and answer the questions of this committee. So I'm not aware that he met with anybody other than the person that was obtaining those documents for him. They were not new documents. They were documents that existed when he was the president.
Did any of them
And
require a security clearance?
we validated that he has a security clearance. I don't believe any of the documents were classified, but again, I didn't review the documents that he accessed, but I can say that the documents
Who would have done that due diligence to verify that he ought to be seeing the documents that he be seeing?
They were
that he saw?
documents that existed when he was the president of the CBSA.
So he had access to all of the documents that existed when he was the president of the CBSA?
He had access to his emails, and then he requested specific documents to review.
Would you table a list of those specific documents that he requested access to?
Yes.
And what date did this occur?
I'll have to get back to you.
You will you get back to us?
Yes.
Okay. And there's certainty that he didn't meet with anybody?
I'm not aware that he met with anybody, but again, I think that question is best posed to him.
Was he furnished with any information, briefing materials, talking points, anything of that nature?
He wasn't furnished with any talking points. He did see material, as I have said.
What was this material? Prep material for committee?
It was documents that he wanted to review before coming to testify here.
Yeah, I get that he wanted to see them. What I'm asking is what the type of documents were. So we know that your department prepares you in advance of your committee. So to say that he wanted to see them, okay, fine. I believe it's in your collective interest that you all were aligned on what he said when he came to committee, because this is a massive scandal that your department is facing, that your agency is facing. So did he ask to see the same type of prep materials that he would have asked to see when he was the president, like the alignment on messaging that the department was using?
So there's no alignment and there's no messaging. Material, I asked for material to prepare myself. He wanted to review documents that existed when he was the president of CBSA to refresh his memory to come and testify. But again, he is coming on Thursday. I believe these questions are best put to him.
Did you learn anything new from Kristen First's testimony before the House on April 17th?
I believe I was generally aware of all of the points he made. I apologize if I'm missing something, but there was nothing specific that jumped out as particularly new information.
Has CBSA requested any funds to be repaid back to the government from GC Strategies or Coradix and Dalian?
So we are going through all of the documentation and those contracts to determine whether restitution is warranted, and I'm working closely with our colleagues in the Public Services and Procurement Department to do that work, and would rely on them to seek restitution.
What is CBSA doing to ensure that resumes from prospective contractors and subcontractors are not being copy and pasted from requirement rubrics?
So two things, several things, but to that specific question that you've asked, we are having potential contractors attest to the CVs that are put forward to CBSA. We are separating the review of those contracts and having it done in conjunction with our procurement group. And we've also implemented a quality assurance function that will pull those CVs and their evaluations on a regular basis to do checks on them.
It appears that Mr. Ozowski was only invited back to be a contractor with CBSA after he was caught in a fib, telling the committee that he had never met with GC Strategies, yet we know that that was not the case, that he had, in fact, met with GC Strategies and Christian Firth on a Zoom call. But my question to you is, was Mr. Ozowski hired as a casual employee or as a contractor?
Casual employee.
So he was a casual employee, which means that you, as CBSA president, are responsible and accountable for his actions. Is that correct?
Yes, I signed the letter of offer.
And so the fact that you came to this committee today without the information of what information he accessed, I think is rather troubling. So I look forward to you providing this committee with all information that he accessed during his time as an employee while also being with PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Point out, there's 16,000 employees in the CBSA, so...
I'm going to stop you there. There may be 16,000 employees, but only one that you hired back who was the former president of the CBSA. So there is an increased degree of accountability there. How many consultants do...
Mr. Chair, I just want to pause you for a second, because I think you just reiterated the question that Mr. Barrett had before. This is not you're just reiterating that you're expecting the documents, but Mr. Barrett's already requested them. I just want to make, okay, that's fine. So it's clear for the witness as well for the analyst. Thank you, Mr. New. You've got 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
16,000 employees. How many consultants currently are hired by CBSA?
I can come back to that.
Well, you told us 68 have been reduced, but I want to know how many total. You don't have that number at your fingertips here? You're able to say 16,000 employees, but yet you've been asked about consultants, but you're not able to tell us the total number of consultants here today at a meeting about consultants and consulting practices?
I'm happy to come back with a list of contracts that are currently active in CBSA, but that information is also largely posted. Any contracts over $10,000, I believe, is posted on the website. So
yes,
that information
yet you're able to
should
tell
be
us
available.
68 have been reduced, but you don't tell us the total number. Mr. Ali, I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your last name, but could you describe this Lansdowne Park event? Was it a dinner? Was it drinks? What was this event?
Mr. Chair, it was a evening meal, probably ended around 7 p.m.
And was there any discussion with any of the attendees about any business dealings with CBSA? Was CBSA business discussed at all?
No, Mr. Chair, it was a team event. It was discussing ArriveCAN work, not any contracts. Like I said, it was a hard project to work on. We were working long hours, and it was really just socializing with team members.
Business of ArriveCAN was discussed then?
I wouldn't say any financial or contractual discussions were had. It was the day-to-day grind of ArriveCAN was discussed.
The Conservative Party introduced an opposition motion calling for the recollection of funds paid to contractors who did not actually no work. Ms. O'Gorman, you mentioned in the response to a previous question that you were working on it. Are you recommending that any of those funds be reimbursed?
So absolutely, if we've found contractors who were paid that did no work, we will absolutely work with PSPC.
You're saying if. I want to know, have you recommended any funds be reimbursed?
Not as of yet. We're going through the material.
To whom did Fred Gaspar report when he was vice president of CBSA?
Me.
Why did he leave CBSA?
He had an opportunity at Transport Canada, and that's where he works now.
From December 2nd to December 8th, 2022, Mr. Gaspar took a trip to Bahrain. Are you aware of this trip?
I believe that was in the context of the World Customs Organization.
Are you aware if he did anything else while he was on that trip?
No,
Did he undertake any personal business while on that trip?
I don't know.
Did he attend the World Cup while on that trip?
I have no idea.
You never asked him? You never asked why inflated costs were incurred for a trip to that region of the country during the FIFA World Cup? And you didn't ask if it was perhaps because of an interest in seeing a World Cup game?
I don't. There's a WCO meeting. He would have attended as our representative. If he took extra time on his own cost to see and do something else, I don't believe that that is out of bounds. I don't know if he went to see the World Cup, and if he did, I'm not sure that that would be inappropriate.
Well, at cost of tens of thousands of dollars, Canadian taxpayers might disagree. But
So-
could you
so, no,
provide
Mr.
us?
Chair?
Could you provide us with a list of all meetings that he undertook while in Bahrain?
Mr. Chair, I think it's important to not let it stand that without any evidence, and any evidence that I've seen, that somebody's accused of spending taxpayer money on personal activities. I'm not aware of that. If there's information to suggest that, I would be interested in seeing it. I am happy to furnish the meetings that Mr. Gaspar attended while he was at the WCO. If he met other people on his own time, then that's a question for him. But I have not seen anything to see that he was using taxpayer dollars to do inappropriate things. If that's the case, we will look into it. But I think it's important not to let that accusation hang out there without any further information.
Thank you.
Is CBSA reviewing Diane Daly's involvement in the ArriveCAN procurement process since Christian First questioning in the House of Commons on April the 17th?
So just stepping back, as the committee's aware, there was a set of allegations put forward by a company called Bottler AI. Those allegations were examined by our Professional Integrity Division, who has undertaken various investigations relating to that. Diane Daly was involved. At this point, I don't know the status of the investigation and whether she is being investigated or whether she is a witness.
I want to circle back to the number of consultants that you have reduced. You said the number was 68. What is the total number of consultants that CBSA is using?
So I'll have to come back. Is your question in the IT? So we've got a number of contracts across the organization that relate both to informatics, guard services, training. So we have a lot of contracts. We have been reducing our reliance on IT contracts, and I can come back with the list that we currently have.
Yeah, let's get a full list of all the contracts. You said the number that you reduced was 68, so it would be interesting to know what that reduction is from. It's important to note that, of course, CBSA officers are currently considering taking job action, and part of their grievance is excess management. So when taxpayers are also paying for more outside consultants and more outside management, that's going to impact the traveling public and commerce in Canada. I want to talk about Mr. Ossowski's access to documents when he was hired for a day to prepare for his committee appearance. As president of the CBSA, are there any documents that you don't have access to, within the CBSA?
I don't think I would have access to all of the documents from my computer, but my assumption is that I could access any of our holdings. I would.
So PricewaterhouseCoopers used to do extensive business, has historically done extensive business with the Canada Border Service Agency. Currently, you've said they're not doing any business. Mr. Ossowski is recruited by PricewaterhouseCoopers from being the head of the Canada Border Service Agency. And what better way to get business with the CBSA than to hire its former president, understand its workings? Now, Mr. Ossowski came back to your employ to prepare for a committee appearance, but only after he'd been caught lying. So there's an integrity question about the individual. So you hire the individual knowing that the lie's been told, and then give them access to the information that he would have had access to, you said, while he was president. would that not be commercially valuable to PricewaterhouseCoopers to have one of their top consultants, the former head of the CBSA, get the office door unlocked and logged into the computer, and you signed his letter of offer, you said, but you seem like, to be honest, a bit laissez-faire about, unconcerned about what he accessed and who he talked to, and it doesn't seem to have occurred to you before today that perhaps there was a commercial interest with someone who had demonstrated dishonesty in front of a parliamentary committee. Does that concern you?
So, Mr. Chair, again, I'm going to take issue with the language around lying. Mr. Osowski testified to the fact that he had not recalled meeting or being in a meeting where individuals from GC Strategies were on the screen.
Ma'am, he said he wasn't in the meeting, and he was in the meeting. So by any other definition, that's a lie. So let's move on to the substance of the question. So we won't litigate whether or not he lied. I'm asserting it. You refute it. We'll accept that. Are you not concerned about at least the appearance of the circumstances that you created by hiring Mr. Osowski? It seemed like it was in his interest to get this offer of employment from you for the day, not in the interest of the CBSA. So what's the advantage to the CBSA, if not to get story straight, which you've taken issue with, that characterization? So if it was just so he could access his emails, why not pay him $1 so that he was technically employed? Why are we giving the guy $500? Seems like a good get for him for the day.
Yeah, so again, if hiring him on casual to give him access to documents to prepare for the appearance, it's in the Crown's interest that former officials come and can testify to what they did and why they did it while they were in their job, and that was the rationale for bringing him back. If he did not need to come back and could have accessed the information and the documents that, again, date back to his time as president, then that's on me, and I would happily provide that access going forward without any framework of employment around it.
Can you provide to this committee a list of all of the other occurrences where similar treatment has been offered to former employees of the CBSA with relation to their testifying before parliamentary committees during your tenure as CBSA president?
There is nobody.
So special access, it seems like special treatment for
but
Mr. Osowski.
There haven't been retired people who are former officials invited to the committee. So the other employees who have moved departments were also given the offer to access or tell CBSA what documents they may wish to see to prepare for their own testimony.
Thank you.
The only one who was paid to prepare
Thank
before.
you very much.
Because the others are employees.
That is
A question of reimbursing former employees when they're called back in front of committee. Ms. O'Gorman, can you tell us how that works and why this is done in this way?
So I'll share my understanding of it, is that it is a practice when former officials are called to testify, as they are in litigation after they've retired, as they are at the Labor Relations Board for grievances after they've retired, and in this case, an individual was called to testify before a parliamentary committee after he had retired. It's in the Crown's interest for those individuals to come prepared, and in order to prepare, sometimes they require access to documents to refresh their memory of activities and decisions that were taken and rationale while they were doing the job. So I did put a formality around that employment to give him access to it. And as I've said, if that wasn't necessary, that's on me. It certainly wasn't an effort to enrich Mr. Osowski. It absolutely was not an effort to align any stories. He prepared the way he needed to prepare. I'm happy to to provide a list of documents he accessed, but as I said, you can ask him on Thursday.
turning now to our third round. Mr. Nader, you have the floor for 5.
Thank you, Chair. Has Mr. Osowski been in contact with anyone at CBSA since he was been summoned to appear before this committee on Thursday?
I recommend you ask Mr. Osowski.
No, I'm asking you as the president of CBSA. Has anyone from CBSA been in contact with Mr. Osowski in advance of his summons for this Thursday?
If he has asked for documentation, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. We know that the RCMP has raided the home of GC Strategies founder Christian Firth. I would like to know what documentation CBSA has thus far provided to the RCMP.
I'm not tracking that. I'm not, the RCMP doesn't come through me for requests of the CBSA. They don't report to me. They will conduct their investigation and they will seek the information that they feel is necessary. I'm not going to track that. It's an investigation. They are free to come and obtain any information that they feel is necessary.
Your lack of curiosity about an ongoing criminal investigation involving your department is surprising, that you're not going to track the information that is being collected or is being asked for, considering that there are quite literally criminal investigations ongoing involving employees at your department, that doesn't trigger any curiosity on your part. But I want to go back on
Mr. Chair?
It wasn't a question, but...
Well, but it's a statement about how I'm conducting myself. So I'm not going to ask people to report to me on whether they've been interviewed by the RCMP or what documents they've been provided. It's an investigation by the police, and I am running CBSA, but I'm not going to keep logs of what they do. They will do what they do. They don't report to me. So it's not a lack of curiosity, it's a respect for the police investigation.
You are right that the RCMP does not report to you, but the 16,000 employees that you noted do report to you, and the documents that are contained within CBSA's possession are relevant to you as president of CBSA. So the fact that you're not tracking what documents are going out from CBSA to the RCMP is surprising, frankly, because we know the challenges that CBSA has had with documentation because of the report we've had from the Auditor General, paper trails not existing, paper trails being deleted, emails being deleted. We know from Mindone's emails magically disappearing. So I want to know what you as president of the CBSA are doing to maintain the integrity of the documents within CBSA, that they are being preserved, that they're being kept intact, and so they're not magically disappearing when there is an ongoing RCMP investigation, which includes the Canada Border Services Agency. What's being done?
You know, if I asked employees to report to me on what documents they may have provided to the RCMP or interviews, I would be sitting here being accused of interfering in a police investigation. And so the RCMP has every right to come and obtain the documents it feels it needs. I don't feel the need to track that. Similarly, when the Auditor General comes in, they work with the team to get the documents they need, and nobody reports that to me. I don't interfere with that. My expectation is, and I've made that clear, that the documents that anybody in those positions, be it the Auditor General or the police, wish to seek and obtain, that they are handed over. So I don't know what you're talking about in terms of the magical disappearance of emails, but I can tell you that the RCMP is gathering the information it feels that it needs.
I can tell you which emails have magically disappeared. It was Mindone's, your former...
You don't have evidence of that.
Mr. Chair, I think it's very clear. I mean, I see you're defending Mr. Doan, and that's your right. But the fact is, this has been very well litigated in the media about emails disappearing. So I'm concerned about the integrity of the data and documents maintained at CBSA. How much time do I have, Chair?
Mr. Chair, you'll understand if I don't take media articles as factual basis to act with regard to employee conduct.
So you're saying that the story in the Globe and Mail is false?
I'm saying that we're conducting our own investigation, and you're stating that articles in the newspaper are equivalent to determined facts. So I'm saying we continue to look into it, we continue to investigate, and that's the basis upon which any action will be taken.
I was listening to a lot of the questioning here by my Conservative colleagues, and it always, astounds me as how they never let the facts get into the way of their political jargon that they really put out there. I mean, for example, just today we heard that Bahrain was the place where the World Cup and like nefarious things happened, but actually the World Cup was in Qatar. So I'm not really sure how that really plays out with the narrative of Mr. Nader. But again, I thank you, Ms. O'Gorman, for being here today and for answering questions yet again on this important topic. And I think the sentiments of the committee are very much the same, in that something happened here. Taxpayer dollars were used. We are trying to get to the bottom of what happened and how can we improve the process. And I think that your open and honest testimony here has been quite inspiring.
I want to talk about the dinner at Lansdowne. What was the venue?
I believe, Mr. Chair, it was Joey's.
Okay. What date did this happen?
I apologize, Mr. Chair. I do not have the exact date. I can provide it to you.
Please do. How many people were there?
If I recall correctly, maybe 5 people, Mr. Chair. Between 5 and 10 people.
Who were they?
I was there. Mr. Firth was there. His partner, I forget his name, Mr. Anthony, I believe, was there. Mr. Utana was there. I don't recall if Mr. McDonald was there, but he may have been. And some other team members, contractors like Mr. Murphy, and that's about the number of people I can remember, sir.
Mr. Murphy's a contractor with which or with whom?
He was one of the subcontractors through GC Strategies.
Was Mindone there?
No, sir.
And what was for dinner?
I believe I had a burger, and there was appetizers, whatever Joey's food was.
What about drinks?
People
Cocktail.
had drinks.
Beer, wine, mixed drinks, soda?
I had a beer.
Okay. And what did you say the discussions were about? You said it was about the work of, like, the day-to-day of ArriveCan.
Yes, so it was, we were working long hours, and we were talking. My conversation was mostly about the challenges of implementing ArriveCan from a technical point of view.
So what would Mr. Anthony and Mr. Firth have contributed to those conversations? Because they don't do any technical work. They bill, and they billed more than 1,500 times. So their business is contracting. It's not IT work. So there was no grind. You talk about you talked about the grind of ArriveCan, but for GC Strategies there was no grind. It was only grift, and so their business was drumming up more business. It wasn't about programming. So what would their contributions to those if you're talking about programming, I'm not a programmer. If someone started into a conversation with me about programming, they might as well be speaking, a language I don't understand, literally, in that case.
Mr. Chair, absolutely. I didn't have much conversations with Mr. Firth or Mr. Anthony about programming. I was mostly speaking with the team members that I was working with.
Okay, so who were? Well, there's only 5 of you, and 2 of them are Christian Firth and Darren Anthony. So did they just talk to themselves? So who organized this dinner?
I believe it was Mr. Firth.
Mr. Firth organized it. Did anyone talk to him?
Other than greetings and offhand conversations about how life is, I didn't speak to him specifically.
Well, so we've got 5 people sitting at a table. The host invites the 3 government employees, 2 government employees, a subcontractor of GC Strategies, and the 2 principals at GC Strategies. And the government employees don't speak to the dinner hosts at a table of 5 people. We're not talking. This room has a very long format. It would be lost on people who are maybe watching this webcast that for different reasons, this room is set up with a very long table. 5 people sitting at a table at Joey's Seafood is a little bit more intimate than that. But to not talk about the only business that GC Strategies does, that seems a bit incredible. You'd agree that sounds that we've got this dinner, drinks are flowing, we've got contractors of the government, subcontractors of the government, taking people out, and no one's talking to them. That doesn't sound believable. Do you think that sounds believable?
Chair, I apologize if I said no one talked to them. No one talked to them about coding. We were talking about people's lives, their day-to-day family issues, as if it was a social gathering. We did not talk specifically, absolutely, did not talk about any contracting issues or any.
So 5 people who
financial
only
matters.
have ArriveCan in common sit down in a bar and.
Question, Mr. Barrett.
And they didn't talk about ArriveCan. They talked about kids' soccer schedules.
If anything we talked about ArriveCan was about the challenges of implementing ArriveCan.
Because they're not
Thank
programmers.
you very much.